Miss Nadine, are we ready? Great. Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming today to our new venue. We're going to be here for the next 12 months or so. So the next meeting, this is where it should be. We'll announce it to make sure that it's in the newsletter also. But today is March 5th, 2024. It's 6:38. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Pastor Jim and the First Baptist Church of Pine Island for allowing us to have our meetings here. It's very much appreciated. They've done a wonderful job after Hurricane Ian to rebuild. So it looks nice. So on tonight's agenda, oh, that's right, I control it. All right. So tonight's agenda, we're going to be introducing our this year's board members, because last month we had our election, our yearly election. We'll be going through the Treasury report, the meeting minutes that are online. I forgot to change, yeah, that's, okay. We're going to have Mikes, our general manager from Greater Pine Island Water Association. He's going to talk to us about Lee County and the establishment of he's talking about the annexations that's going to be occurring, and not an actual annexation, it's more the laws and rules that they're putting in place on how to do voluntary annexations. And he's been following it really tightly and close, so he'll be able to give us an explanation. Hopefully, if anybody has questions, he'll do his best to answer it, or we'll refer you to the county if it's a really good question. And then we have, is Judy here? Judy Ott, thank you. And Abrianna, thank you. And they are here to discuss the water quality monitoring program. And then we'll have general announcements and adjourn. So with that. Okay, so tonight we're going to start with our Treasury report.
Okay, great. Does this work?
You got to turn.
Let me use yours, please. Okay, this is the Treasury report. I know you can't see a thing on there, but I'll read exactly what it says here. The money market investment is now at $16,764.92. The checking is at $7,042.79. The CD hasn't changed since last month. It's not going to be rolled over until July 3rd, so it's $78,548.43. And in our cash box is $103, plus whatever member money you contributed tonight. So the total money in the last month, now that's since February 6th when we had our last meeting, the total money in is $220.46. And 95 of that was cash memberships, people coming in and giving me cash, and the other $125.46 was Square memberships. That doesn't mean you're Square, that just means that you use the Square system to get to pay your dues, and they charge a small fee for that, for the use of that. The money out total was $442 in this past month, and that's again since the February 6th meeting. And we had, as expenditures, we had spent $300 for the church rental at the Methodist Church. There was also $70 for the SunBiz. It's basically a business privilege tax that you pay if you do have a business or an organization or even something like this, a nonprofit in Florida. So we paid $70 for that, and we paid $70, excuse me, for the SunBiz, and $72 for the United States Postal Service box, and that's for a year's use of that post office box. The Chiquita Lock Fund is, I'll just run it down here for you very quickly, but that is still going on. And my sense is that we will probably be paying our last monies into that in the next week or so, I would guess. So that'll be the third payment to the lawyer who's working on it. His name is John Thomas. But the original GPICA, we pledged a total of $2,500. And then we got donations from members. They contributed a total of $2,975. We agreed to match whatever they pledged, so that added another $2,975. And then we got our first lawyer bill, that was for $2,500. The second lawyer bill, which was in December, I believe, and that was for $3,000. And so our current total is, we have what's left in the pile is $2,950. And I've already received a letter from Mr. Thomas that they're anticipating that we send them that money as soon as possible, because they're working almost pro bono for this, you know, Chiquita Lock defense. So the very bottom thing here is just, it's not too important, but we agreed to pay matching donations for all the Chiquita Lock funds that were for membership. And basically 3 donations have been submitted using the Square system. And as I mentioned before, that's just a system where they dun you a little bit for your fees, for processing your fees. And so there were 3 expenditures, one for $25, one for $200, and one for $100. And again, those were donations that people made. And so they were actually received, for that $25, we only received $23.97. So if a person would say, oh, well, you know, geez, what happened to that other $1.03 that I contributed? So we've agreed to put that from our money, the general fund, to pay that back. So bottom line, that comes to a whopping $9.53. So that's it, and that is the Treasury report. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Oh, here.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so next we're going to, whoops.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I don't need the mic for that.
No, otherwise people online can't.
Okay. One final thing, and this has nothing to do with the Treasury. I just wanted to thank, there were 4 people that came out for a road cleanup, and we do that, try and do that about once a month. And basically what we do is we have adopted 2 sections of Stringfellow Road, from Ray Mary really all the way up to Bosilla. And we just walk along there on both the ditch side and on the sidewalk side, and we pick up the trash. And we try and do it early in the morning so that it doesn't get too hot. But 4 people answered the call that Nadine had sent out for us. Claudia Reed, Linda Britton, Christine Bloom, and Ellen Ballard. So I just want to acknowledge all of those for their hard work.
Thank you for doing that. All right, well, thank you very much for coming out to the community cleanup. It does help us, and of course, where we live, make it beautiful and pristine as possible. So we're going to move now to the meeting minutes for our February meeting. They were available online for everybody to review. Hopefully everyone's been able to go online and review it. Do I have any questions? Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Mike seconds. All in favor? Aye. Anybody against? Any nays? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now I'd like our 2024 GPICA board members to introduce themselves. And since this is good work.
I'm Mike Sweeney. I live in Bokeelia. I Don't know what else to say. I'm the treasurer of the Great Bryan Island Civic Association. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Tim Heitz, and I live in Bokeelia. I've been here for 10 years, and I'm just trying to make it better for what it is.
Thank you.
I think it is. Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm Steve Eldridge, and I'm just recently new to the board, and I am the secretary. So if you have any issues with the meeting minutes, please come see me. My beautiful wife and I have lived in Bokeelia for 4 years now, 5 years. And my parents had a place in Seagull Bay up at the top, overlooking Charlotte Harbor for 20 years before, and that's kind of how we found our way here. And we're from the Minneapolis, and Chris always makes me say St. Paul, because she's a St. Paul girl, that area. And came down here in 2020 for COVID and never looked back.
I'm Sue DeHode. I'm a Bokeelia resident for about a little over 10 years now. And I come from the Midwest. I grew up in the Cleveland area and spent most of my professional career in the Chicagoland area. Moved down here after we retired. And I have an interest, I have a background in both biology and engineering, and very active in a lot of the water activities around here, Calusa Waterkeeper, and actually the organization that Abrianna and Judy are going to talk about. So been on the board a year now.
And back here, I'm Nadine Slimak. I'm the vice president of the Civic Association. I think I've been on the board since about 2016 or 2017. My husband and I have lived in Bokeelia since 2000, and I became a GPICA member because I wanted to help protect our coastal rural community, and that's why I'm here. So thanks very much for coming out tonight.
Okay, and I'm Deborah Swisher Hicks, the president of this year. And I've lived in St. James City since about 2019. I fell in love with this place in around 2016. Finally got to move here in 19. And only have been back to home in Sacramento once. So I really like it here. So, and that is our 2024 board. Okay, so now I would like to, there we go. As always, please silence your phones if you haven't already. Take all conversations outside if the private conversation's out. During Q&A, please step to the center to the microphone. We'll make sure it's turned on. And please always remain civil, respectful, and cordial, and no personal attacks. So, and thank you. So now I would like to bring our first guest speaker. It's going to be Mikes. And if I try to say your last name, I know I'll do it wrong. So.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All right. I'm the general manager of the Water Association, and I've spoken before this organization a few times. And I'm here tonight to talk about Cape Coral and annexation. So we are handing something out. So specifically, Lee County has something in their charter that allows them to, every 5 years, create a commission. And then through that commission, they can change the charter. And so 2023 was the year where they were entertaining things to change the charter, and something kind of popped up that would affect us, and that has to do with voluntary annexation. So the Lee County Charter Commission is entertaining language to change the charter, Lee County Charter, that allows the county to review voluntary annexations. So this has been a point of great concern for us in our community, because the city of Cape Coral has been annexing in a westward direction. You know, outside of Matlacha, there's a little area of unincorporated Lee County, and they've been annexing in that territory, working their way to the west. And so through the Charter Commission and this language, we may be able to get something a little bit more formal to where we can, we can be included in these voluntary annexations. So part of the process is there are public meetings, and the handout that you're receiving right now, at the top there are 2 bullets. And those bullets are the next public meetings. So the first one is March 12th, and that's in South Lee County. Maybe a little bit too far away for everyone, but if you want to attend, please feel free to. It's down there at Three Oaks Parkway. The one after that is March 26th, and that's in North Fort Myers. It's a little bit closer. So it would be good if members of the community attended the meetings, and then kind of let the commission know that it's important for them to accept this new amended language regarding voluntary annexation, and so that it's important for our greater Pine Island communities, and it's something they should think about. They haven't been getting a lot of public comment, so if you're going to go, you got to make sure you go a little bit early or be there on time, because they have a tendency to just wait 5 minutes and then they disband the meeting. So if you are going to go, maybe go a little bit early and make sure you're there. Outside of that, in general terms, we've done pretty good in the last year and a half regarding the annexations with the city of Cape Coral. So I would like to take this time to kind of recognize a few people who have been, valuable in this process. And one of them is our board member, Bill Diley. He's up here in the front row. He's a former attorney, former Army colonel, recovering attorney. He was also a city council member, so he's given us a lot of good insight into the politics. And then Deb has been instrumental also in attending all the meetings and helping us do research. So between Deb and Bill, and also Chief Ben at the fire department, in the last 2 years, we've been pretty successful at keeping this city at bay. There has been a change. So Rob Hernandez, who used to be the old city manager, has gone now, and he's been replaced by Michael Ilchism, and we've been working with him, or trying to work with him, and it's been better, a lot better than working with the former city manager, Rob Hernandez. So that's all I really had to talk about. I'll take any questions if there are any. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Can you give me the elevator speech on what the change in the language is and why you're here with the Pine Island Water Association? How does it must have to do, the change must have to do with the utilities?
Yes. So our water franchise is given to us by Lee County being the governing body. And so when the city of Cape Coral annexes, they become the new governing body, and we don't have a franchise through them. So we lose our service area every time they annex. It's the same thing with the fire department. And so we have a vested interest in knowing about these annexations and trying to stop the involuntary annexations. There's voluntary and involuntary. Did I answer your whole question? I think there was 2 parts to your question. What was the...
No, I think you answered it.
Okay.
My question is, what's our motivation as citizens to adopt this language?
Sure. So first thing is to help protect the fire district's area because they have a tax base, and to help protect our franchise area because that's our customer base. So, we've made plans, and the fire department has made plans. Like, for example, they built this fire station out there in Matlacha. So the intent was they were going to service people in that area, but they're losing their district due to annexation. Same thing for us. We built a booster pump station nearby their fire station, and that was in anticipation of servicing new customers. But we're never seeing those new customers because they're going away to the city. So it's to help protect the fire district and help protect us. And then the other thing is
So Mikes, is it correct to say that this would give entities like yours and the fire district a seat at the table when the Cape is contemplating a voluntary annexation. So you'd have the ability to go in and negotiate repayment of your fees or any capital improvement costs that you've already incurred, right?
Yes, so that's it. So the way the Florida statutes are written right now, when a voluntary annexation is done, the new municipality that's annexing the property, there's no process. It's other than the new municipality has to accept the person who wants to annex in. So there's no like safeguards. So this new language does put in some safeguards so that when that happens, the county is able to kind of review the voluntary annexation application, and then there can be a discussion about how services may be modified. So it's a little bit complicated because annexation's typically in an area where there's no services, but now, because there's so many people here in Lee County, the city's annexing into areas that have services. For example, our water service or the Matlacha Fire Department's services. So this language will help us negotiate in the future with the city or City of Cape Coral or whomever. The Lee County is also having this same problem with the City of Fort Myers. So they're having it on their side and we have it on our side. So, okay. Any other questions? Bill?
Yeah, just to add to what Mikes said.
Please use the microphone.
The impact on our customers, the ratepayers, is that when the water company, puts in services and then loses the customer base that was anticipated to pay for those through usage fees, we lose, so the remaining customers have to pick up the shortfall. So it's to everyone's financial benefit that this process go forward. As Mikes said, the county, if this is approved, and there's many steps, the first is the reviewing commission, the Charter Review Commission, has to approve it. Then it goes to the County Board of Commissioners, and they have to approve putting it on the ballot because it's an open question for everybody to vote on. So it's a long, involved process. Right now we're at the beginning stage of getting the County Review Commission to approve it, to submit it to the County Board of Commissioners. And as Mikes said, we've attended numerous meetings and would like to get new faces before that board because they know me, they know Mikes, and one or two other people that we've gotten to go to all ones. So in order to impress upon them that there's a wider base of support, any new faces that we can get to go there and just, if nothing else, to get up and say, hey, we support this because it brings order to a process, and we think unincorporated Lee will benefit from a process that has some oversight.
Thank you, Bill.
So I have a question.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So for either of the two of you, am I correct that you must have written what it is that you wanted it and then submitted it to Lee County? Because I hate to say it, I don't see Lee County actually, protecting you in any way, if you want to use those words. So I'm assuming that you're driving the process.
We're trying to. So we have submitted different versions of language we think they should adopt. We were successful in modifying their last draft language. So if we can make what they have right now stick, and that'll happen through people going to these public meetings and saying that you want them to stay with the draft language that they have, which is written down here in this handout. That'll help it. So where language is right now is good. We just need to show support for that language. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
I'm confused. Now, I'm trying to figure out, basically you're saying that the water and the fire department are trying to make sure that their franchise is protected. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And along with that, it is potentially going to be for the Greater Pine Island Civic Association. So we don't become voluntarily or involuntarily annexed to Cape Coral. So is this all tied together?
Yes. So the fire department and us, we lose our franchise area when property gets annexed into the city. Now, when you annex, you can only go to adjacent properties. So, for example, the city can't come into the center and annex any property because the property around that property is still in unincorporated Lee County.
It has to be contiguous.
Exactly. So there's a slow march westward. So they keep annexing properties to the west, to the west, to the west, and now they're very close to not Matlacha, not the island, but the spit of land that goes towards Matlacha. And so our efforts, my effort is to protect the water association, but a secondary benefit is kind of halting that slow march west, protecting the islands from annexation.
So it would behoove the Pine Island Civic Association to not only support what you're doing, which is a great idea, but also to possibly try to get the Pine Island, Matlacha people to, incorporate on their own? Is that an ultimate goal that could be done?
Well, I'm not here to talk
I know
about
you're not,
incorporation.
but I'm bringing this up as something, because it's being recorded somewhere. Is it something that should be, I know they've been working on it off and on. Is there a comment on that? Thank you.
What they're working on this, it doesn't stop them from annexing. It's voluntary annexation, is my understanding. We don't have a say in it. It's usually the whole property owner of that's contiguous, right next to it. It really doesn't affect our incorporating or not incorporating ourselves at this point. That's a different conversation altogether, which is totally separate from this. What this does is it'll protect our water company and our bills, basically, and it protects a little extra protection also for our fire department and all the equipments and buildings and everything, the underground work. There's a lot of that. So unfortunately, it doesn't do that part.
And I would say at this point, I think our most recent opinion on whether to incorporate or not is posted on our website. At this point, incorporation is really not an issue we're addressing at this time for lots of reasons as an organization, separate and apart from this charter annexation proposal.
All outlined in our position paper.
That's right. It's all posted on our website. You can just look for this latest GPICA statement on incorporation.
I added March 26th to my calendar, and I'm hoping that others do as well. I would encourage you, maybe the Civic Association, to have some bulleted talking points that you can sort of pull out of your paper, because this will be the format there as well. And it will be helpful if we could all be saying, just start at the top of the list and work our way down and repeat if necessary, depending on how many people are there, so that the message is accurate and consistent. Thank you.
Thank you, and I agree with that.
I was really hoping you were going to be at that Lee County meeting. So I went to the first Lee County meeting. You showed up, you were late because it was done by 5:08, I'm sure. Yes, I understand. So I was really looking forward to seeing you there because they didn't give us any info, got very few information. So if you guys do have questions and you do plan on attending this Lee County meeting, please ask your questions now, because you're going to sit in front of 8 people. They're going to look at you and say, do you have a public opinion? And you're going to look around and be like, well, I don't really know what I'm supposed to have an opinion on. So if you have questions and you want to go to this meeting, ask now, because they just want you to come speak to them. They're not going to give you any information, and if they do, it's very little.
Yeah. And that was the purpose of the handout. So it is sort of a complicated topic, but the gist of it is if they would just move forward with the amended language that they currently have on voluntary annexation.
Quick correction, they only meet once every 8 years.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Once every 8 years.
Okay.
To review the charter.
Okay. So, okay. Yeah, the purpose is this document that you guys have is to tell you when the meetings are, and is to speak a little bit about what needs to be said, the topic. It's not overly exhaustive, it's just one page, but the gist of it is that if we could get people to attend the public meeting and say that they'd like the Charter Review Commission to keep the language or move forward with the language that they have regarding voluntary annexation. That's, they don't do too much of a Q&A. They'll just ask, they'll give you an opportunity to speak. They don't typically ask questions, but
They don't give you anything.
yeah,
You better know what you want to know.
yeah.
Have you been to Matlacha Civic Association and St. James?
Well, I have not, but typically when things like this happen, I email all the civic associations. So the email for this went out about a month ago. And then I wait for feedback. So sometimes, like here, I got put on the agenda, and that's wonderful. I didn't hear anything from the Matlacha Civic Association. So, but I send the email to contact people, and then I believe they forward it to other people. But I can't tell you what they do or they don't do. But
yeah, I just know I was at the last meeting and it wasn't brought up at all. So it might make sense to contact the president and see if, their next meeting, it could actually be announced, or maybe you could actually participate. They have a lot of people that come in and talk, so that, we're sort of grabbing as many people as we possibly can.
And they just went through a leadership change, so it's a new person, I think, as of last month.
okay, who is the president now then? Is it? I'll look it up.
All I know is not Mike Hannon, it's somebody else.
Okay, that's who I typically email. So, but I'll look into who the president is now. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Well, I thank you for your time. Please read through the handout. There are some web links to websites where you can do a little bit more research. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mikes. It's we're very lucky to have you as our water person, and you are very active in our community, which is very, very grateful. We're grateful. Yes.
One more question, maybe. Is it the same people going to be at both meetings?
Yes.
Okay, so if you show up to one, they're probably not going to want you to show up at the second one, right?
Well, unless
Say
you have
exactly
questions.
The same thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a logical assumption.
Okay.
I can tell you, at the meeting I attended, there was me and one other young lady, and the young lady that was attended, I would assume she was a college student, and had to go because she had to observe, because they asked her if she had any questions, and she said, I'm just here to observe. So, that's how many people attended that meeting. That happens every 8 years.
Okay. All right, thank you. Our next presenters, I think did I bring up the wrong picture? No? Okay. Next, I would like to introduce both Judy Ott and Abrianna, thank you, Sadler. And they'll be talking about the volunteer for water quality monitoring and how that works. We'll get you 2 microphones.
This is going to be brief and informal, as we understood it was intended to be. And we're going to tag team it. I'm going to do the history because I'm old, and Abrianna is going to do the introduction of the current way the program works. So thanks to Sue and thanks to all you all for being here. We were appreciating this opportunity because we're putting a call out to volunteer water quality monitors. And the reason that that's important is because we all here are aware of what we perceive as declining water quality in our estuaries. The fishing's not the same, the changes because of the hurricane, changes because of the development. And so one of our ulterior motives today is for asking your help in finding people who want a nice adventure once a month for 4 hours. Well, not that, 2 hours. And if you have friends that have boats on Pine Island particularly are interested, you don't have to be a scientist to do this. And I'm going to leave you with a list of famous Pine Islanders who were once water monitors. Some of them are lawyers and artists and musicians. But let me start by saying that Abrianna Sadler is the representative with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, the Charlotte Harbor Aquatic Preserves Office, that is helping with this volunteer water quality monitoring program. And she's been with the program since 2019, so she knows her way around the water quality and the seagrasses and the Pine Island and the value of the aquatic preserves. Her boss and our friend is Ariana Taylor Manges, who is a Pine Island resident and would like to have been here today, but she had lots of things going on. And Mariella's been a Pine Islander and with the Aquatic Preserve Program since 2012, so she has even a longer vision. And she also grew up in the Keys. She's a Floridian, so she knows how things have been changing. Me, I've been here since 1990, and I moved here for the job that Ariel and Abrianna have as the biologist for the Charlotte Harbor Aquatic Preserve Office. And the Aquatic Preserve Office was actually out here on Pine Island. So does anybody remember Ann's Cafe or Stanfield Bookkeeping? And how about Jamie's Yoga Studio up there by the biker bar? That was our office. And the Aquatic Preserve Program was really early at that point, and that relates to you all and to the Calusa Land Trust, because at that time the office was tiny and we had all these estuaries from Venice down to Fort Myers Beach managed out of that office with 3 or 4 people. And Peter Ordway, who was the Calusa Land Trust member, would come in faithfully every February. Judy, when are you going to start a water monitoring program? Like, yeah, I'm trying, you know. And then finally, 40 years later, we got help from the Charlotte Harbor Environmental Center, and we were able to start a few monitors up in Punta Gorda. And then with the help of the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary Program, by 1995-96, we have 50 sites where all these people go out and collect water quality information at the same time, which agencies just can't do. They can't get that synoptic picture. And we also go out at sunrise, which you'll like it. Once you get used to it, you'll like it. And that sunrise time is actually valuable information that agencies can do as well, because it's when the oxygen is lowest for the fish. In the morning, everybody's been sleeping and respiring all night, and nobody's been photosynthesizing. So that way this program is designed allows us to do that. So a little bit that I forgot about my little history point here. Does anybody know when the Greater Pine Island Civic Association started? Nadine?
1957.
Yeah. So this organization has been around since the mid-50s. And they have been the forebearers of how we get our community together to help protect our natural resources. And part of that has always been the water of the estuaries around here. One of the strongest rules we have collectively to help protect our estuaries is the Florida Aquatic Preserve Program that Abrianna works with. The laws are very explicit. The policies of the agencies, not so much, and there's some conflicts, but the laws are clearly cut by our legislature that these aquatic preserves area will tell you are to be preserved in natural conditions for the future. So we're lucky, surrounded by us. Pine Island Sound and Matlacha have been aquatic preserves since the early 70s, Charlotte Harbor since the mid-70s. Lemon Bay was the most recent aquatic preserve designated in the mid-80s. And that time in the mid-80s was when the Aquatic Preserve Office was opened up here in Pine Island. And at that time, we learned a lot about the community from commercial fishermen. Commercial fishermen gave us a lot of information about how the estuaries worked and what to keep an eye on. We also learned from the Pine Island Civic Association and the Responsible Growth Management and Gene and Ellie Boyd. Anybody remember them? They were instrumental in helping us protecting the resources for what we could do from inside our state positions. And then the Calusa Land Trust was one of the motivators that helped link the communities, the different interests around Pine Island into helping us protect the estuaries. Immeasurable. So in the mid 90s was when the Charlotte Harbor Aquatic Preserve Office moved up to Punta Gorda, and their presence got a little bit thinner down here on Pine Island just because the territory is so much bigger to cover. But that's also when the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary Program was established, and that helps us give us some additional information for protecting the resources and advocating. And about that time was when this volunteer water quality monitoring program was established. And so the program has been around over 20 years now, 25 years. I'm trying not to steal Abrianna's thunder here. But at the same time, the Aquatic Reserve Program started this water quality monitoring program. What was really cool about it was it crossed over those agency boundaries, Sarasota, Charlotte, Lee County, 2 water management districts, a couple DEP districts, and the field staff did it. Abrianna and Ariel and people like us, that's who got that communication going. And the program got established, and because it was proven that you needed water quality information by water body, not jurisdiction, then the agencies got together and they also started an interagency partnership water monitoring program, which is a little bit different design but complements ours. It tells us more what the open water's doing. And then in addition to that, the other 2 programs that help us protect our water quality are the data loggers that that Abrianna may or may not talk about. They're really cool. There's these 24-hour recorders that tell you what the oxygen's doing and the temperature and salinity 24 hours a day and water depth. So one of those survived at the Matlacha Bridge, the Ian, and the one survived down at Estero Bay. And those gave us information about the tide surge and that kind of stuff. And so they help those 3, it actually takes 4 of those programs to understand what's going on with the water quality. And then the last program is, the most recent program is the Calusa Waterkeeper. And they are able to cross over the science and the advocacy that it takes to help us protect our waters. And so the purpose of today's presentation is for Abrianna to challenge you to pick a water site and find some volunteers to help us do this program. And she's going to tell you what they look at. And then if you're interested in additional information about what the significance of this data is and what it means, we can do that at another presentation. We have some good Estuary 101 graduate school, all you wanted to know about Pine Island estuaries in a half hour, we can help you with that. And if you have questions after our presentation about some of the language for the impaired waters and the wording that's used for the translation of the science into the laws, we can help you with that too. Okay, now what you've all been waiting for, famous Pine Island water monitors. Joan Rosenberg, and Phil was there, and Kathy House and her father Bud House when he was around. Ed Chapin, Ed Chapin. Norm Gowan, Phil Buchanan, Janis Joplin's saxophone player, which was Terry Clements. We have a couple space scientists that were with us, and the artist Diana Willman. She's been a water monitor. And Jack Worthington, my husband for 25 years, has been doing this because he got his arm twisted. And Frank Tuma. So it's a cool. And Sue DeHote is one of our really well-spoken, helpful water monitors. And so for us, our secondary motivation is to find people that are going to learn about this water quality and be able to translate it to English for people and learn about yourself, your site and stuff like that. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Abrianna. Any questions for me? History? No? Okay, good. Thanks.
Thanks, Judy. Real quick, I just want to say thanks to Nadine and the board for inviting us tonight, and thanks to Judy for inviting me to do this presentation. She did a really good job talking about aquatic preserves and what they are. So I'm not going to belabor that point too much. I'm really here to talk about the Charlotte Harbor Estuaries Volunteer Water Quality Monitoring Program, which is a mouthful, but we tend to just call it Chevy Walkman for short. So if I say that today, that's what I'm talking about. Judy already explained, but these are the 5 aquatic preserves that we manage out of the Punta Gorda office. So basically all the waters from northern Lemon Bay, the tidal rivers, down to southern Matlacha Pass and Pine Island Sound. So that's our operating area, and including Estero Bay, for this volunteer water quality monitoring program. So there are 46 sites throughout these 6 aquatic preserves, and that includes San Carlos Bay, even though it's not an aquatic preserve. And volunteers go out on the first Monday of every month at sunrise to take in water readings and grab samples. So, as Judy said, as you can see, it covers a very, very large area. On this map, all the sites are in these black and white little Secchi discs. That's a tool that we use to look at clarity and color in the water column. And then these stars, I just taped them on top. They're the open sites in the area, and I'll get to those a little bit later, but those are what we're hoping you guys can help us fill. Yeah, so we have, these sites complement data that's being collected throughout the estuaries by other agencies and organizations. But as Judy said, this is a very large area, and we're covering 46 sites at one time that just cannot be done without volunteer help. So it's a really unique and important program that collects important data for this region. So I'll just get into what the parameters we collect for. Obviously, we can't collect for everything, so we focused on things that are important for human health and fish and wildlife. What a day in the life of a volunteer looks like: you get out to your site, and you're going to have this handheld instrument that we give you. Yeah, sure, you can help. So this handheld instrument collects. It's expensive, but we send it home for you. We train you guys how to use it. And it collects for real-time readings. So we look at dissolved oxygen, which is obviously important to help fish and invertebrates breathe. It also looks at salinity, which helps indicate where organisms in different species of seagrass can survive. We get temperature from there too. And then you also collect samples that we send out to the lab for analysis. So you will fill up these bottles with water, get them to your coordinator or to your office. And the things we're collecting for include bacteria, which can be an indicator of waste, human and animal waste that gets carried into our system with stormwater runoff, septic leach, and other sources. So obviously that's an important characteristic we want to know. We collect for nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen. They can be indicators of pollution, and they're also important for plant and algae growth. And then we also collect for chlorophyll and turbidity, which affect light availability for seagrass. So all this stuff is really important to look at the health of the habitats and the water quality throughout these regions. And then I'm sorry, I'm a little, I just skipped through some of the beginning portions, lost in track of thought, but sorry. Huh? Well, yeah, I'm so sorry. How often do you have to do this? Yes, so that is my next thing. So, right, so you collected all those samples. It only takes about a half a day, a month outside of your initial training. And then after, outside of that sampling day, we meet twice a year at Matlacha Park to just run through what sampling looks like, make sure we're all on the same page. And then obviously we have an annual volunteer party to show our appreciation. We go somewhere fun, have food, hand out little awards, and thank you guys for all that you do. Yeah, so, and you don't have to have a science background or a water quality background. It's really easy procedures to follow, and once we train you up, you guys are good to go. We give you pretty step-by-step instructions, so it's really not complicated. We provide a lot of support for you guys. We can come out and help you sample the first couple times. We're always in communication. Yeah, so it's an important set of data that's being collected, and as you can see, we have a lot of sites open in Pine Island Sound and Matlacha Pass. We have 7, and that's because this is a unique system where most of our sites are boat access only. which can be hard to fill and then hard to maintain those type of volunteers because it can be kind of a challenging aspect. So again, we're really here today to ask you guys to help out, or if you have friends that have boats and want to be a part of this organization, we'd really appreciate it. Yes, and then I also brought, brochures about the Charlotte Harbor Aquatic Preserves, specifically about the water quality monitoring program, and then my business card to reach out for volunteers. I did not bring any maps, just these maps. No, you do not. We have volunteers that are only here for season. We have some that are only here for summer. There are sites where one person will do it part of the time, another person will do it another part of the time. So we can be really flexible, and we do all that coordinating, and we can set you up with somebody, or having a site filled part of the time is better than not having a site filled at all. So please ask any questions. I'm sure I missed stuff if you guys are curious about the monitoring. For most of these sites in Pine Island Sound, you do need a boat. We have one site that is accessible by land off of Matlacha Pass. But that doesn't mean just because right now there's not a non-boat site open. You can always get trained up and stay involved in the program, and we can reach out to you when site's open.
So timing is critical in this whole thing. You do it once a month on
because
one day
yep.
and at a certain time.
Yeah, because of the consistency of the program, it's going on almost 26 years. There's no really wriggle room. You do it the first Monday of the month at sunrise within an hour, and that's to keep that data consistent, and that's how we're able to analyze it for trends over time, looking at the health of the estuary and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so the unpredictable thing is the weather.
Right.
And what happens when you get a nor'wester coming in and you got to go to a point across the bay and it's impossible to get there? What does that do to your data?
Well, it's safety first always for all of these sites. And we're not the principals. You just call and let us know that it's not safe, you're not going to make it, and that site won't get monitored that month, and it is what it is. But you can go on vacation. We're not going to tell you not to go. We are here. We're thankful to have your guys' support in whatever way you're able to give it to us.
And because there's so many sites for so many years, it really does help us create a picture anyway. So if there is a missing spot, it's okay. It doesn't matter. We just appreciate what you have.
So the Ballards are tag teaming at the mic here. Tell us how this data is used when consistently we see in some areas that there's high levels of E. coli being reported by the coastal water keepers. So how important is it really if no action is being taken to ameliorate those problems?
Yeah, so the data has been used to establish impaired water bodies. We had funding, so that data is used to do that. It is accessible. It's submitted to the state database where they pull and analyze that data. It's called Store It, or it used to be called WIN, or vice versa. It used to be called Store It, and now it's called WIN. But they pull the data from there, and that does allow them to establish impaired water bodies. We did have some funding to get all of the data analyzed from up through 2022, and there wasn't as much significantly increasing trends as what we saw through the data was temperatures are significantly increasing, but that was our only significantly increasing trend as far as the parameters we collect. There were other increasing trends, but there were more decreasing trends, and we haven't really been able to look into it and see too much what that means just yet, but that is what we found. And Judy, please chime in.
Okay, to add what to Abrianna was saying is that, like we said at the beginning, water quality is complicated, and this program is designed to collect the parameters that are important to helping us understand how things are changing with time and space, changing with relationship to seagrasses, because the seagrasses help the oxygen, they help the fish. And so these parameters were specifically designed to tell us when the chlorophyll and the bacteria are getting out of whack. The bacteria is a particular, your question, Ellen, specifically, many of the water monitoring programs are not able to collect bacteria unless they're specifically designed to do that, because the analysis has to start within 6 hours. So one of the big advantages of Ariel's of Abrianna's program is that we are able to collect bacteria and get it to the lab in time to run the analyses once a month at sunrise. But that doesn't, at these 46 sites, it doesn't tell us what's going on in the sites we're not sampling. And so that's why the Colusa Waterkeeper information is really important for filling in those graphic holes. And the other thing that's important, that goes back to your question of how the data is used. So in my mind, the three components of a successful restoration or protection program are the science. You got to have the science right, and you got to trust it. You have to have somebody to interpret it and set a policy, and then you really have to have us as advocates to make sure that those policies are implemented. And it's a whole discussion about the legalities of how the water quality is set in code and law, and that's established at the federal level, it's implemented at the state level or not. And there are some catch-22s in that system. And so one of the advantages of this program, well, there's a lot, but one of them is that the volunteers become our advocates. They understand what's going on. They see their site and how the changes are going over time. There's not a volunteer that can go out for a year and not get possessive of their site. I mean, you really do see the changes, you take it to heart, and you understand what those changes are, and you tell your friends at a cocktail party, you know, and then your friends and you go to the county commission. And so that's one of the things that's important. The other thing that's really important about this program is it does get put into the water quality days that Abrianna was talking about, that's used to establish the legal limits for the different parameters in these water bodies. So that helps us get more information as well. And it got an international award because of that.
And then also, we don't do much analyzing in our office. We just don't have the capacity for that. But all this data is also uploaded to the Water Atlas. There's a link up there on there. And you can click on any one of these sites and it'll graph every single parameter for all the data that's ever been collected. So for people to use to do what they wish with that data, it is publicly available. And that's part of the state program. All of our water quality, our seagrass for both the water quality for both the volunteer and the continuous and the seagrass data, all of that is available for the public to access.
So you can go home tonight
You can go home tonight and go on that website and click on the site closest to your house, and it'll tell you what the water's been doing for 20-something years. It is amazing, really cool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And it gets it sort of follow on to Ellen's question. And I asked this of a couple of scientists a couple of meetings ago, which is if Matlacha Pass and Pine Island Sound are impaired, and I think, are they both nitrogen or nitrogen and something else? I don't know without looking at the map. But anyway, they're impaired. So we know that they have too high a level of a certain nutrient, I think it is. Why don't we have an action plan? For example, in the Caloosahatchee area, there's an impairment that was identified, and so there's something called it's a calculation of the total load of that nutrient that can go into that water body, and essentially you have to reduce the load in order to reduce the amount of the impaired nutrient. And then there's an action plan put in place to create the conditions where you meet the load requirement. So that they have acronyms, but why, well, I don't want to say why, but how do we get a TMDL established for Matlacha Pass, Pine Island Sound, or both?
Okay, let me take a crack at that, and I'm going to try and simplify things. There are legal requirements, well, there are requirements defined by law what the levels of the different pollutants can be. And there's a table of those pollutants that's got 300 pollutants on it. And those pollutant levels are defined by the federal EPA, but the state Florida Department of Environmental Protection is designed to implement it. They have assumed that authority to do that. If the water body is not, and there's very specific monitoring requirements that tell what you have to do to decide if your water body is meeting that legal requirement or not. And let me back up one step to tell you that those legal levels are based on how we decide we want to use our water bodies. Do we want to use them to drink, fish and swimmable, use them for waste canals? There's 3 or 4 different classes of waters, and that defines those legal levels of those pollutants. If the water body, if there's enough sampling by the Department of Environmental Protection or other organizations that are legally, okayed, quality assured, the water body says it's not meeting its intended uses. That's what Sue was talking about. It's called it's impaired. It's not meeting its uses. You might hear people throw around impaired water flow, IWR. Once that water body is defined as it's impaired, technically it's supposed to kick in a process where they have to define, well, what's the total load of these pollutants that's harming the water body? How much do we bring it backwards in order for the water body to recover itself, to heal itself naturally? That's called the total maximum daily load, TMDL. How much crap can you put in the water and still have it heal itself? And then once that estimate is determined, then this Basin Management Action Plan that Sue was talking about kicks in. And it's a group of stakeholders, the people involved, that would help reduce those pollutant loads to that legal level. It's a long, involved process, and it ends up with the different stakeholders having a defined responsibility for how much they have to reduce their load and by what means. It could be agricultural and best management practices, it could be stormwater, it could be cleaning up your dog poop. There's a lot of different ways to cumulatively reduce those just usually nutrient levels. The only trouble with that process is once it takes forever. It takes forever to go through that process, 10 years to go through the process, and by that time you're continuing to harm your resources as this legal process is going on. And then once those management practices are implemented, there's no monitoring requirements. You are presumed to be meeting those. So while there's a lot of advantages and there's a lot of motivation to local governments, if they hear this threat of this TMDL and the Basin Management Action Plans, we shouldn't be waiting for that. We should be taking action now because the process is so long that we have to take action sooner than that. Is that? Sue, tell me what your opinion is.
What action?
Okay, I'll tell you what. This goes into the Estuary 101. What we do on the land affects what's going on in our waters. And there are a lot of local zoning and code things that can really be implemented by us that will help us circumvent some of the entrenched processes, legal processes. What comes to my mind is we could have a tree ordinance that says you can't mow down the trees when you put a Publix in. We could have an ordinance that says our stormwater ponds have to have trees around them to absorb the nutrients. We could have an ordinance that says let's make our stormwater pond designed to hold a 50-year storm instead of the legal 20-year storm volume of water so that it treats it longer when we get a hurricane. And so the right to clean water is definitely a thing too. We learn about that and vote on that. And so a lot of what we can do has to happen at the local level with the kinds of land use changes that help us hold the water on land and reduce the nutrients. And you really need to be well informed. That's one of the reasons this volunteer program is helpful. You need to be informed of what the language is. And okay, so talk about the purple pipes that Cape Coral was putting in for their reuse water, and that sounds good because we're going to get more water for irrigation and stuff like that. Even if there's a tiny little bit of nitrogen in that reuse water, the total load of the nitrogen that's going in is outrageous. So a lot of what we get billed as being, look what we're doing for the environment, is not necessarily going to benefit in the long run. So we have to be, I guess the answer is, I don't know, active in your own yard, active in your local ordinances, learning about the relationship between what we do on the land and how it affects the water. And it's not just water quality, it's water quantity, the speed of it. The more concrete we put in, the faster the water runs off, the more it carries. The more sediment it carries, and most of the pollutants are attached to the sediment. Does that help? Yep. Too long? Sorry. No, that's my soapbox. I'm giving the microphone away.
I guess I do have a question. And I want to say that first off, I am seriously thinking about volunteering to do this. But as you lay this out, there have been 26 years at 46 sites for a half a day. And all that's happened is our water's gotten worse. So I don't get what we're doing this for. What is it really accomplishing? It's not.
Sorry. It's a really good question. And what's happening here is our population increases are changing faster than our ability to clean up our act. And so a long time ago when I first moved here, they said, well, we can't just set what do we have to reduce our current pollutant loads. We have to anticipate future populations and what we can do. And you are absolutely correct. We have not kept up the pace.
But my issue is, if you've attended some of these meetings, we've had a bunch of scientists in here. We've had all kinds of people. So, there's some familiarity with what the problem is. And you describe it very well. But Sue's question is, what's the action? What is Steve Eldridge going to be able to do to make a difference? Other than, data quality collection that really doesn't change the outcome of where things are going.
I have to say that you're a person who becomes a water monitoring and well-educated like Sue about what the issues are. And like you guys are, you are well-educated compared to most people about what the issues are and the relationships that are going on. That action is primarily voting. It really is primary voting, and it's getting ordinances at a local level that help correct the problems. That's all I can say. I don't know the answer to that. Advocacy, really, that's one of the advantages of the Calusa Waterkeeper. And it is one of the advantages of learning about what the laws, the strength of the laws of the aquatic preserves are. We're active, Cape Coral's scary, I'm sorry. It's my opinion that we are gonna have to take some action on Pine Island to help us protect ourselves from some of the decisions that are made for the rapid decline of natural resources so close to us. Because pulling those locks out, just flushing the toilet right out into Matlacha Pass. And we can measure that. We can measure the increases in the algae that are coming. You can't say cause and effect, but you can sure say correlation. And so the more that we go to our county commission meetings and we vote with our knowledge, I know it's discouraging. Just think about what it's like to work in the middle of it for 30 years and see the decline. Sorry, I don't have a better answer.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow it up and say I know that Abrianna is here to find volunteers. And I would just encourage everybody to get involved. It's a half a day. It's 1 day a month. Please get involved, because it sounds like that's the way you're really going to develop some knowledge about what the real issues are, so that you can speak to the issues, to the politicians. So it is frustrating, and I guess that's what's ultimately coming out. And we've just heard this for the last 3 or 4 meetings. As we've had other people come in, they all kind of say the same thing. We're not going to get a TMDL, and we're not going to get a BMAP, and we're not going to do this, and all we know is that our water quality keeps declining.
And I have to say, supporting what you're saying, first of all, if you don't have a boat, we can match up with somebody that has a boat if we get enough people to participate. You shouldn't be doing it by yourself anyway. It's just more fun if you go with somebody else. But an elected county commissioner will definitely listen to a citizen explain the science more than they will listen to an agency person explain the science. The first time I had one of the volunteers explain oxygen to my boss, and he got it. The little light bulb went on his head. He was just like, bing, oh, I get it. I was like, really? I've been trying to explain this stuff to you forever, you know? And so your role is the ambassadors.
I want to maybe make one more comment, because I do get frustrated, and I have a science background, and it's you can see what's happening, and it's frustrating that the politicians, I'm not sure that they understand or care. They have different motivations. However, I do find that participating in this, you do become educated, you learn the local laws and the local weirdness of the local laws. But you also, I find, and one of the things that my strategy is to sort of bypass, well, there are two things. Bypass some of the legislature in Florida because they don't really want to move forward on fixing the environmental problems. So the right to clean water amendment, I think, is really important. That's one that gives the power to the people. If we can get this on the ballot, and then if it gets voted in as an amendment, gives every person in Florida the right to clean water, and it really allows us to hold our government accountable to enforce the laws that are in place that aren't really being enforced, and it gives us as individual citizens that power. And I think the other thing that I'm finding is go to the press. When we have big issues around here, somebody who can speak with the science background, and that's what Colusa Waterkeeper does. That's what the Waterkeeper does. It talks to the press. They get interviewed. When we have a big algae bloom out here in Matlacha, Wink News comes out and NBC2 comes out, and they do want to do a little piece, and they want you to talk about it, and that's one way to get it out there. That's one means of advocacy. So that's not something you would do with this program. This is talking to the media is something that the Colusa Waterkeeper does do, and that kind of gets it straight to the people again. If everybody who lives here wants clean water, it's just getting through the legislative process to get it. So, giving the people the power is helpful.
Giving the people the power and having them say telling a politician, it's my own economic benefit to have this good, happy, healthy environment. And what that means, it's good for your elected campaign to have a good, happy, healthy economy and environment too. The economic link really does get the politicians' attention.
One more point. I'm not a morning person. And when I found out I had to be out and sample, I have 2 sites that I get to by boat. And I have to get them both done within an hour of sunrise. We did it yesterday. My sister's visiting from up north, and she came with me. It's hard to get up that early, but it's beautiful out on the water. It's beautiful to see the sunrise. Actually, we came back and took back the samples, reloaded the boat, and she picked up her husband and her grandson, and we went out to Sanibel, and we saw the sun set, too. But it is really nice there out on the water in the early morning, and it's a nice experience. So there's a plus for that.
Redeem one more comment. We do have one land accessible site. So if there is somebody here that wants to do the testing, does not have a boat, it's in Matlacha Pass, so not really far away.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming and talking to us, and hopefully we can get you enough volunteers to cover all the sites, because the more sites that are monitored, it builds up the science and the history on it, and for us to bring to our commissioners in the future. So. All right, so tonight, that's we've got one announcement, and it has to do with the Greater Pine Island Alliance. I want to let you guys know that they are having a meeting on Tuesday, March 19th at 5:30. I believe it has moved to PICC Sanctuary off of Data, I think it is.
That's correct. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, it's in the industrial park area. And, whoop, wrong button. Here we go. So that's it for this month's meeting. I would like to thank you all for coming to the new attendance of the new church setting. I hope everybody enjoyed today's presentation and will step away with a lot of knowledge.
Move to
And
adjourn.
do I have a second? We have a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.